That should be a bond between us, Rodney. We both know we can never love again.
But we can be friends, can't we?
Of course, Rodney, dear.
She was Hollywood's most beloved angel, the very picture of grace, charm, and innocence. But what if everything you thought you knew about Audrey Hepburn was only part of the story? Behind the delicate smile and timeless elegance lived a woman who battled hidden demons, devastating betrayals, and scandals that could have destroyed her career. This is the real story of Audrey Hepburn, a story filled with heartbreak, resilience, and shocking secrets Hollywood never wanted you to know. The icon who defined an era. In an industry built on extravagance, Audrey Hepburn's simplicity was revolutionary. She didn't need sequins, plunging necklines, or towering hairstyles to command attention. A little black dress, a pair of ballet flats, and a knowing smile, that was all it took. When Audrey first met designer Hubert de Givenchy, he thought she was a nobody, mistaking her for another model. But once he saw her in motion, her slender form, her effortless poise, he became captivated, and a lifelong creative partnership was born. Together, they created a style that women could actually emulate. Unlike the voluptuous figures of the era, Marilyn Monroe's sensual bombshell look or Elizabeth Taylor's dazzling beauty, Audrey offered something different, an attainable elegance, one that promised that any woman with the right dress and the right attitude could be unforgettable. But even as she became a global style icon, Audrey carried with her a heavy private burden, the belief that she was never good enough. Secret battles with self-image. Audrey's most persistent enemy wasn't the paparazzi, it was the mirror. Throughout her life, she wrestled with a deep, relentless insecurity about her appearance. She believed her shoulders were too narrow, her feet too large, her nose too prominent. Friends recalled how she often skipped mirrors altogether, preferring not to look at herself unless absolutely necessary. One of her most painful admissions came in a 1959 interview where she quietly confessed, "I have been told many times that I am beautiful. But I don't believe it. I never have." Even as magazines splashed her face across their covers and designers begged her to wear their gowns, Audrey's inner dialogue remained stubbornly cruel. This complex relationship with herself was part of what made her so mesmerizing. She carried herself with the quiet grace of someone who didn't quite realize she had captured the whole world's heart. But vulnerability is a double-edged sword, and Audrey's vulnerability often led her into dangerous emotional territory. Scandalous affairs hidden from the world. The world loved to imagine Audrey Hepburn as pure and untouchable. The truth was much more complicated. While much of the gossip of her era focused on Marilyn Monroe's chaotic love life, Audrey's own entanglements were whispered about only behind closed doors. One of the most shocking was her rumored affair with John F. Kennedy, a relationship so carefully hidden that even today few talk about it openly. Their alleged romance began when Kennedy was still a senator, enchanted by Audrey's poise, intelligence, and the quiet sadness in her eyes. Unlike Monroe, whose explosive sexuality lit up every room, Audrey's allure was subtler and perhaps far more dangerous. When asked to perform at JFK's birthday celebration, she reportedly agreed, but insisted it be a small private moment, not a public spectacle like Monroe's. To this day, there are no surviving photographs of Audrey's performance, only rumors and the lingering question, how deep did their connection really go? The forbidden love with a married man. In 1954, while filming Sabrina, Audrey met William Holden, golden boy of Hollywood, famed for his rugged good looks and tragic charm. Their chemistry was immediate, electric. Audrey was drawn to Holden's confidence, humor, and the tenderness he showed her, a tenderness she had rarely known. Holden, for his part, was dazzled by Audrey's mixture of innocence and depth. But Holden carried a secret, one that would devastate her. He had undergone a vasectomy years earlier, making it impossible for him to have children. For Audrey, who had always dreamed of motherhood, this was not just a deal breaker. It was a heartbreak she could not bear. She ended the relationship, but not without scars. Audrey would later describe this period as one of the most painful of her life, a time when she realized that love alone wasn't enough. The irony, while the world saw her as the ultimate embodiment of fairy tale romance, Audrey's real experiences with love were often crueler than any Hollywood script, surviving war, hunger, and loss. Long before the flashing lights and designer gowns, Audrey lived through horrors that would leave lifelong marks on her body and soul. Born to a Dutch baroness and a British banker, Audrey spent her early childhood surrounded by privilege. But when the Nazis invaded Holland during World War II, everything changed overnight. Food vanished, streets became battlefields, fear was constant. Audrey witnessed friends and neighbors being dragged away at gunpoint. She and her mother survived by foraging in gardens and eating whatever roots and weeds they could find, sometimes boiling nettles just to make a thin, bitter soup. At her lowest, Audrey weighed just 88 pounds, her body ravaged by malnutrition. She later credited this extreme starvation for her famously slim figure, a painful legacy she never romanticized. Even more devastating was the emotional trauma, her father's abandonment, the execution of relatives by Nazi forces, and the day-to-day terror of wondering whether she would survive to see another sunrise. These experiences shaped her forever and gave her a compassion and depth few Hollywood stars could match. From ballet dreams to Hollywood fame. After the war, Audrey dreamed not of stardom, but of the ballet. She poured herself into her training, spending endless hours at the bar, despite the lingering effects of wartime malnutrition. In her mind, she could still see herself dancing across the great stages of Europe. But reality was cruel. Her weakened body, once starved nearly to death, simply couldn't withstand the rigors of a ballerina's life. Her teachers, while admiring her talent, gently steered her toward acting. At first, Audrey took small modeling jobs to pay the bills, posing for department store catalogs, earning just enough to scrape by. Her early film roles were minor, uncredited appearances, background dancers, forgettable characters. It wasn't until Broadway came calling, offering her the lead in Gigi, that Audrey's unique presence finally found the spotlight it deserved. From there, destiny took over. Roman Holiday made her a household name overnight, and unlike many overnight successes, Audrey had the talent to match the hype. But even as fame enveloped her, Audrey remained startlingly grounded, perhaps because she had seen firsthand just how quickly fortune could turn. Love, betrayal, and escape. Audrey's marriages mirrored the contradictions of her life, fairy tale beginnings, tragic endings. Her first husband, Mel Ferrer, was a brooding actor and director, brilliant, ambitious, and intensely controlling. At first, Audrey was dazzled by his sophistication, seeing him as both mentor and partner. But over time, Ferrer's jealousy and domineering nature isolated Audrey from her friends, her passions, and even parts of her career. She stayed for their son, Sean, and out of a stubborn belief in loyalty. When the marriage finally collapsed, Audrey was devastated, but also free. She married again, this time to Italian psychiatrist Andrea Dotti, believing she had found a man who could give her the family life she craved. Sadly, Dottie's charm masked a pattern of infidelity, and Audrey found herself humiliated once more. Throughout it all, she never became bitter. Instead, she poured her love into her children and, finally, into Robert Wolders, the partner who gave her the quiet, unconditional love she had always longed for. It was a happiness she had earned the hard way. The Dark Side of Grace. Audrey Hepburn was a study in contradictions, the picture of health and vitality who carried private addictions and illnesses in silence. Throughout her adult life, Audrey struggled with a heavy smoking habit, often sneaking away during filming breaks to light up. Friends worried about the toll it was taking, but Audrey shrugged it off with a wry smile. We all have our little sins. She also battled periods of depression, quiet struggles hidden beneath her polished exterior. The pressures of fame, the heartbreaks, the endless expectations, all of it weighed heavily even if the world never saw it. And yet, through it all, Audrey radiated a kind of inner light, a resilience that even her darkest moments couldn't extinguish. As Hollywood's adoration began to fade, Audrey found a higher calling. Her work with UNICEF wasn't just charity, it was a personal mission rooted in the traumas of her wartime childhood. She knew what it meant to starve. She knew what it felt like to be forgotten. In war-torn countries across Africa, South America, and Asia, Audrey knelt in the dust to comfort starving children, to hand out food, to advocate fiercely for their survival. Unlike many celebrity activists, Audrey insisted on visiting the most dangerous regions herself, refusing the safe photo ops and scripted tours. People in the developed world need to know, she once said. They need to see these faces to understand that behind every statistic is a child with dreams, with fears, with hope. Her work won her numerous awards, but that was never the point. She believed that if she could make even one person care, it would all be worth it. A farewell too soon. In the autumn of 1992, Audrey's body began to fail her. She returned from a UNICEF mission in Somalia exhausted and in pain. After weeks of tests, doctors delivered a grim diagnosis, a rare form of abdominal cancer that had silently spread throughout her body. There were treatments, but no real cure. True to form, Audrey faced the news with quiet dignity. She returned to her home in Switzerland, spending her final weeks surrounded by gardens she had lovingly tended, family she adored, and the memories of a life fully lived. On January 20th, 1993, Audrey Hepburn slipped away in her sleep, leaving behind a legacy more enduring than fame. She was 63 years old, but legends, as they say, never really die. Audrey Hepburn's story wasn't just about elegance or fame. It was about survival. It was about resilience in the face of unthinkable loss. It was about choosing kindness over bitterness, grace over anger. And maybe that's why she remains timeless, not because she was perfect, but because she was profoundly, beautifully human.